This is a Zach Feldman Show replay on ZRadioLive.com.
The website music station Z Radio Live. This is the Zach Feldman Show. Joining me over the phone is an author. He's been on the air with us before, and he's a brand new book now called Mastering Critical Thinking. Learn how to think, not what to think. It's Chuck Clayton. Chuck, thanks so much for joining me here on the Zach Feldman Show. It's great to see you again. How's everything going?
It's going great, Zach. Thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. Tell me all about your new book. You've been busy since we've last talked.
Yes, my other books have done really well. Mastering Critical Thinking. I did a book back in 2007 called The Rediscovery of Common Sense, A Guide to the Lost Art of Critical Thinking. Never name a book that long. The book did well, and I sold a couple thousand copies. But then I got a bad review on Amazon, and I wasn't willing to push it as hard as I could have, and so forth. But years later, a couple of years ago, I started re-investigating, and I've learned so much since then. So I decided to rewrite the book, and this is so much more robust and solid. And sometimes criticisms help you to focus and so forth. So I've come out with this new book, Mastering Critical Thinking, and especially where things are today going on, and it's a skill that is incredibly needed. And not everybody's going to want to learn it, but those that do, it becomes a powerful skill. You can create an exciting future with meaning and purpose for almost any type of discipline.
Well, the last time we spoke, you were the master poker man. I mean, you created Master Poker Math. You made kind of the workbook for those who are into math, but can also play some poker and bet their life savings away, I guess, in a sense. But tell me about kind of going into the more in-depth space of critical thinking with this new one.
Well, it goes very deep, and let me tell you just a little bit about my background, Zach, and how I got into this. Okay, my background's engineering, and primarily as a mechanical design and development engineer. I've also been a systems engineer, a quality engineer. I had Six Sigma training and a Six Sigma expert for Raytheon Corporation. And so I've been very fortunate to see hundreds of different types of tools, techniques, and methods. But some of them are applicable to just about everybody, okay? And so what I did was I went in and came up with all these different things that will help people become a lot stronger as critical thinkers and so forth. So probably the best way to start is the way I define critical thinking, and I think the way it probably should be defined, it's the ability to apply complex reasoning to understand, actively learn, make informed decisions, solve problems, and to create, invent, discover, which says a lot, but that's our brain power. It's just amazing what we can do with our brains.
It is. It's amazing. And, and you've kind of mastered that aspect of it, where people who are in jobs can really deal with this, this ability you're talking about.
Correct. I've got to be, yes, it's about mastering it, and I'm always growing. I'm always trying to learn more and so forth. So you never become the super expert. You're always, the teacher still is always ought to be the eternal student, and I try to be that way.
So, what was some of the research that you dived into for mastering critical thinking?
Well, I delved back into many of the different tools and techniques and methods and things that I've learned through the past and so forth. And then I also, especially things that are going on today, topical issues and so forth. So what I got into was, I'll just give you a few of the tools, techniques, and methods, which is, and a lot of people know what these are, but, applying them properly is incredibly powerful. And brainstorming, visualization, mind maps, a scientific method. One of the most crucial things is having a curious and open mind. And that sounds a lot easier than it is. And to be able to look at different type of concepts, and even if you don't agree with something, try to understand how it came about. A close friend of mine came up to me or talked to me a while back when I was writing the book and mentioned that human nature and sociology should be put in there. And although I'm not a sociologist or anything, we all kind of see human nature. And there's some, major driving forces. There's a lot of different ones. Some of the primary ones that everybody knows about is, power, money, and sex. And there's a bunch of other ones as well. But when you start digging into this, it helps you understand what the root cause analysis of things, and then also when you want to do deep dives into understanding a subject matter and so forth. And as an engineer, I was very fortunate to, you do deep dives a lot, so I know how to do that and to explain it.
That's awesome. And, you really shown how much, you've known in this book, and it shows the amount of research you've done. I mean, we're talking over 14 chapters, in this book, and 4 different sections, just diving deep into the psychosis, into the mind of those who are creative. What is some advice you have for some people who are, just trying to, get better at their job through this?
Well, the keys, and spoiler alert, but that's okay. The keys to the book are basically have a curious and open mind, like I just mentioned. And that, as I said, it sounds simpler than it is. I see so many people that, I have a curious and open mind or whatever, and then they turn right around and say something else. Uh-huh. I had a discussion recently, and somebody said I use facts and data. And then I provided, in a particular situation we were talking about, I won't go into detail, but I mentioned it's never worked. Mm-hmm. And the individual went, it's never been done right. Well, it's like, wait a minute, you go, I didn't get into it, and I had to leave at the time, but it was like, you want to talk about using facts and data, but then when something completely has been a major, major failure, you're not using facts and data. So that's the type of thing that, a lot of people get stuck in, unfortunately. First-class education is the second thing. And what I mean by that, I don't necessarily mean you have to go to college, but educate yourself, okay? And there's just an incredible amount of resources and so forth today to learn and so forth, to be able to grow in that. Finding your meaning and purpose, knowing where you're going gives you something to get up in the morning, what you're going to be going after and so forth. Become a focused reader. That's really, that's going to help communication skills, verbally as well as written. It's going to help be able to articulate things much better and so forth, and get great teachers and mentors, become a student of history. Those are some of the primary ones to, become a powerful critical thinker. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. Completely. I want to go into also one of the chapters too, the free market capitalism chapter, talk about talking about that subject, in a critical mind thinking book.
Sure. Well, the first 75 to 80% of the book is all about the tools, techniques, and methods. But then I didn't shy away from the tough subjects. Before we go into that, I mentioned, because I talk about human-caused climate change, and I just use an engineering process to go through it all. Yeah. I go through a minimum wage laws, affirmative action. On the chapters that you're talking about, yes, Thomas Sowell, who's one of my favorite authors of all time, has written many books. One of his favorite book, and one of my favorites, is A Conflict of Visions. And so I have 4 chapters in the book. It started out as 1 chapter, but it just got too big. And it's 4 chapters, and it's called Conflicting Visions. And in Thomas Sowell's book, he talks about it, but in the most simple things, it's always been this from day one and will always probably be this way. Everybody wants their own freedom, but there's some people that want to control other people completely, okay? And so where we are in history is, you have 2 major conflicting visions. One of them is, Thomas Sowell calls them the constrained vision, the unconstrained vision. The constrained vision is kind of like what we have in the United States. We have the rule of law, we have freedom of the press, freedom of speech, property ownership, separation of government in the highest level and to the other levels and everything else. And so you have all these type of checks and balances. And you have the unconstrained vision where people are, they're trying to push for centralized control, which never, ever works and never has worked.
No.
It can't work. We've lost over 100 million people to socialism in the 20th century. through Pol Pot, through the killing fields, through Stalin, and through Mao, his tongue, in China and everything else. And Hitler was also a socialist. That was 6 million Jewish people, and as well as other people and so forth. So it's never worked. And one time, and some people have used the thing of Sweden as and some of those states or countries as being Finland, Norway, and Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark. Okay, and Sweden being the primary one. Well, between the 70s and 90s, they tried it out, but it works. It was so terrible that they dropped it. Okay, and they have now become. They are actually in the Heritage Foundation considered more free than the United States. So when people start using that as an example, yes, they were socialists for a while, but they are not now. Now they have a lot of social programs and everything else, and so, but in answer to your question, yeah, it's that to me became. I spent several months working on it to try to get it to the right focus on what was going on with these conflicting vision and what's going on today. And not trying to offend people, but on the other hand, here's the belief systems, and they're pretty clear.
And here are the facts too, because you did a lot of research on this book, and you quote sources too in it.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
I mean, how long
you've done your homework?
Oh, of course. Well, how long has the research? How long did the research take for you for this one?
The book. I'm a goal-oriented person. I always have been, Zach. So what I kind of kept track of what I was doing, and everything from watching videos to writing to doing other types of research and everything else. And I started in November of a couple of years ago, and then all last year, and then this year, I finished. The book was published on June 1st. Something like 2,800 hours of what I recorded is what I spent, and that there'd be other times, and you're always thinking about it and so forth. But that is, the actual writing itself. But it's not just the writing; it's you write it, you rewrite it again, and you rewrite it again. You try to make it as smooth and clear and crisp and everything else as possible, so that it's very understandable. That's the way my brain works: is to try to break it down. As Einstein said, make it as simple as possible, but not simpler.
That's awesome. And that just shows how great of a research you've done on this book. I mean, it's a lot of information, but it's a lot of good information, for those who want to, kind of change their life around a little bit, when it comes down to, seeing the world in a different perspective. What is next for you, Chuck? I mean, you always got a new book going out, but what's your next passion project?
Well, right now I want to get out more and promote the book, of course, and then I'd like to get on the speaking circuit a little bit to present to different audiences and things like this, and get them to understand the importance of critical thinking. And on those type of things, if I can just get them to see the power of it, and then how you do it. And as I mentioned, there's several things you can do. Becoming a focused reader, becoming a student history is really important. And read both sides. I mean, definitely, make your own decision. It's all about learn how to think, what to think. And is there prejudice in the book? I'm sure there is. It just is, you can't help it. But I try to be as open as possible. However, some things become pretty clear. For example, socialism just has never worked, okay? Mm-hmm. And it can't work because of human nature. People will do what's best for them and then their families and so forth. But a lot of things that are done are not, the altruistic is people will help others once they've got themselves taken care of. And so if you, in a socialist society, where what Karl Marx, it sounds beautiful, but it just doesn't work. From each according to their needs, from each according to their means, to each according to their needs, and it just it falls apart because so many people will do the minimum, and that pushes other people to the minimum and everything else. Every time they've done experiments on this, or in classrooms and things like this, it always comes out to the same thing. Human nature is human nature, and it's been consistent throughout history.
Well, your Practical Guide series is really helping so many out there. And it's really great that, to see another one come out called Mastering Critical Thinking. Learn how to think, not what to think. Chuck Clayton, where can people find you online?
They can, primarily through Amazon. Okay, I have a YouTube channel, and just look up Mastering Critical Thinking, and those are the two primary ways. I also have a Twitter channel and a Facebook. Well, Facebook, I'm not that active in the things that I'm doing there. Facebook is more of just a friends against friends, friends for friends and so forth. So
that's awesome. That's really cool. Well, Chuck, I'm so happy to talk to you again. I'm glad everything's going well. And best of luck with this brand new book. Again, it's called Mastering Critical Thinking. Learn how to think, not what to think. And it's by Chuck Clayton on Amazon. Chuck, thanks again for joining me here on the Zach Feldman Show, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Zach. I really appreciate the interview.
Want to hear more? Listen to the Zach Feldman Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ZRadioLive.com.